Scottie and Dr Shola are with us again. They always upstage me when they're on the show on a Thursday. And Scottie is with me here in the studio today. Hello to you. So I'm afraid, Doctor, you've been slightly upstaged. Let's wait and see. Let's see what Scottie has to say. Legal action.
It's going to happen, and I think we knew it was going to happen, hence why both sides lawyered up even before the first vote was even counted or mailed in the Democrats, from the Democrats' perspective. We're going to have legal action. The question is there going to be enough grounds that it makes it all the way up into the Supreme Court? We're dealing with voters that don't have face accountability to these votes. So unless the Trump team can prove that there has been, without a shadow of a doubt, fraud committed or voter suppression on the Republican side, it's not going to get very far in the courts.
Doctor?
Well, America cannot boast of a democracy if it has a president who continues to undermine it. I mean, as far as I can see, and I think the world can see, Donald Trump is determined to disenfranchise American voters who have voted early and who voted by ballots, mail ballots. And it's not over until every single ballot is counted. That is democracy. There is no merit to his baseless accusations, lies, misinformation, and conspiracy theories that anyone is trying to steal Republican votes. It's utter nonsense. He is afraid. He's acting like a loser. He's not even waiting for the results to come out for him to be able to prove that something's gone wrong. He's acting like a loser, and that's wrong. And we understand why. Let me explain why. It's because he finally sees that he's an unpopular president. He sees that because Biden has won he's broken the record for the highest number of votes cast for any presidential candidate, and Biden is leading him by millions in the popular vote. That's an indictment of Trump's administration, his misogyny, his racism, and everything about his corrupt administration. And it's also an indictment, the fact that the elections for the electoral votes is so narrow, that's also an indictment. He's a sitting president. He's a president that's boasted of being the best thing since sliced bread and Abraham Lincoln for the United States. So why isn't he winning easily?
Okay, don't know. Scottie, why isn't he?
I will honestly I will offer some caution to my friend on the other side of the pond at this point, because we are 2 days out and we still don't have a president. So obviously Americans did not overwhelmingly vote for Joe Biden. So I agree there's definitely a nicer path for the Democrats right now to the White House. But it is not a clear and easy path, and there's still a whole half of the country, because you're looking at split votes. But let's also remember, the reason why the Democrats are ahead and even have a chance right now, it's not because the day of election. It's because all of a sudden, masterfully, all of these votes are being found and being counted 2, 3, 4, 5 days later. I agree. Let every vote be counted, but let's make sure it's legitimate. Voter fraud does happen. And in this case, when anybody can just mail votes in and you don't have that accountability, if Democrats really wanted to not have this dark cloud hanging over Joe Biden for the next 4 years, like they've tried to do over the Republicans, and delegitimize this president, they need to offer full transparency, let full audits open the doors, and let the Republicans, let the Trump team in to watch these votings of the count voters in Pennsylvania and these other states.
Okay, but I know you do things big. Hold on a second, Doc. Hold on a second, because I just wanted to raise with you that I know you do things bigger and better in the United States, but voter fraud...
That's according to us. That's our opinion. Yeah. That might not be what the world is sometimes.
0.025% is electoral voter fraud when it comes to ballots.
But you still have those cases, and we've never been anything unprecedented like this. That's this, but up until now, we've never had this many mail-in votes. There is a reason why the Democrats pushed for this back in July. We knew this was going to be their course of action, and it's funny that we're only finding out these large Democrat areas are the ones where there's these large votes that are being found. It's not like it's happening across the country. It's only in particular areas that have been known to have past corruptions in fraud. Maybe not mail-in, but we've never had this large scale of mail-in votes before. It's unprecedented.
Doctor,
can I extend a favor to my learned colleague and advise caution here? Because, Scottie, you're peddling the same misinformation as Donald Trump. Let us be clear that what has happened here, what's happening here, if there is no evidence of the fraud, are you telling me that all the states that Trump has won so far has been fraudulent? Because surely that must be the case you're making too. If he's been able to win in some states, doesn't that mean that fraud exists there too? Or no, you don't think so? And let's also bear in mind that the reason why there's a record number of voting by mail is because Americans refuse to be subjugated by the oppression of Donald Trump's misinformation, of this voter suppression. They said, no, we will exercise our rights.
Refused because Republicans obviously are not gaining any at this stage. It's funny how this is being very partisanized, that only one party really wants to vote by mail, and this is only benefiting. You've not found one area where these countings of votes the last 48 hours have benefited Republicans. Not one. Not a little bit. Isn't that a little bit red flags to you?
No, the points you have raised are that there's fraud, and you've never had this number of mail-by votes, mail votes for the longest time. It's never happened before. And I'm telling you why it's happening now, because people are responding to his lies and misinformation. Mail ballots is a right of every American. So you can't say that exercising that right is fraudulent. You can't say that counting ballots is fraudulent. None of that makes sense. It also means that you cannot now change your story and say that Donald Trump's win in certain states is fraudulent, because you're not going to be able to use that same scenario to back his win. So again, makes no sense. You should be able to speak on this point when you have, or if you have evidence, but you have nada.
The evidence that of Republicans, the accusation of fraud to Republicans. Where's that evidence of it? Because it doesn't exist at this stage. And I can guarantee in Pennsylvania, like I said, let's offer full transparency. That's all that the Trump team is asking. Open the doors, let everybody see the ballots as they're being counted. Make sure the process is correct.
The only fraud here is not by the Democrats, it's by the Republicans. It's by the president who wants to disenfranchise American voters. That is what is happening.
Thousands of ballots all of a sudden appearing overnight, being dumped at 2 a.m., 4 a.m.,
Listen,
6
I think it's
that does not scare you? Come on. You would be saying the exact opposite if this was in the Republicans' position.
The Democrats are not in control of the electoral process. So they're not denying transparency.
But they're in control of the vote counting in the areas that are suddenly seeing thousands of votes for Joe Biden. Like I said, don't have the dark cloud hang over a Joe Biden presidency. I advise you that.
To say no to transparency. Biden says, let there be transparency. He's talking about unity. The Democrats have no control over the electoral process. So please, don't imply that they are holding back any form of transparency, but they're not. What's your question?
Hold on a second, Doctor. My understanding, according to my learned colleague here, is that in Pennsylvania, the count is being live streamed.
I'm watching it here.
Yes, it is being live streamed, and that's the key. Is now they've allowed it after the Trump team, and there's still going to be lawsuits after they filed it, but it wasn't. That was the problem. They were not being allowed in the initial when these mail-in votes were coming. Listen, Ohio did it right. Before a single vote was counted on Election Day of the day of, they went on and counted all the mail-in voting, and then they added on. That's why Joe Biden was leading in Ohio initially. That's how it should have been done. And that was in Ohio. A couple other states followed that same process. Why they were not more universally prepared for this, I'm kind of a little bit surprised. So yes, now we're counting. I agree, but it should have been done outright from the very beginning. And they're still accepting votes that are being mailed in. That's unheard of. It's after Election Day. Why are you still being allowed to accept votes being mailed in, depending on when the postmark date is?
George, Dr. Gon?
No, listen, if those votes were casted before the election date or by the election date, then by law, those votes have been casted and they should be legally counted. That's the law. The moment they were posted and casted before the election date and it was received on that day, then it should be counted. Americans' votes matter. That is democracy. It's not here to fit Donald Trump's idea of what is right.
Days after 3, 4, up until the 9th or the 12th, they can still be counted. Come on now. Listen, it's so important to you to vote. I think you can put it in a mailbox and make sure that it's there in time.
Yeah, but Scottie, this is the process, and it has been existing for not just decades, for the longest time. Well, all of a sudden, Donald Trump has a problem with it because it doesn't fit.
There's been changes up until now in this process. There's been large-scale changes into how long they were going to accept mail-in votes. That's not always been the rule. It's always been by Election Day, you get your votes in. Now you have, especially in a state like Pennsylvania, and once again, I'm going to point out, out. It's always these little areas that are just turning massive amounts out for Joe Biden that we're having questions in. You're not seeing it in other areas. It's just these little areas that masterfully just find a couple thousand votes for a president. Don't delegitimize the next 4 years of a Biden presidency. Transparency, open it up. Let us see the ballots.
Disagree on Trump, right? You and I disagree on Trump, but in the name of all that is good, can you please not use his rhetoric? Nobody's finding ballots. Those ballots are being counted, and they're being legally counted, and that's the right thing to do. So please, I agree that the process needs to be better, but that does not delegitimize it. That does not make it wrong. It can be improved, but as long as there's still ballots to be counted, it must be counted. That is democracy.
Once again, and you're showing the live shot right now. The problem is, one, like I said, the Trump team claims that they were not allowed in there from the initial beginning. There's a lot of videos that actually prove that, the Republican poll watchers being kept to the outside. But now, as you're looking at, and there's like 12 different step process they're going through, you can't guarantee that every step like that, every ballot that's being opened right now is legitimately that person was the one that marked that sheet. That's the problem with mail-in voting. There's very little accountability. Let's allow a full audit. In a state like this, the decision's too important. Allow a full audit right now of what's going on and the voters within that state.
They don't have a full audit, are they? The Democrats are not in that room. Republicans are not in the room. The electoral process officials who are, mandated by law to do it are the ones in the room. And you want to accuse them of trying to steal Republican votes? Makes no sense.
Yes, because they're Democrats. You're literally asking the wolf to count their own sheep. That's what it's coming down to. Because it's the Democrats that are counting their own votes, and we're expecting them to be completely honest.
Ladies,
they're not like you and I. They can't be. They're not totally honest with themselves.
You're casting aspersions on fellow Americans simply because you think they may be Democrats. That is wrong.